But we begin tonight with our big story, politics. Ron Paul has quite a steep hill to climb on Super Tuesday. He's got 38 delegates so far, but with 10 states voting next week and 427 delegates at stake, the candidate has high hopes. And Dr. Paul joins me now. Welcome back, Dr. Paul. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you, Piers. Nice to be with you again.
How are you feeling about Super Tuesday? What is your realistic aspiration for the 10 states?
Well, we're working harder in, a few of the states like, Washington and Idaho and Alaska and a couple others. But realistically, I don't have a number. We're just going to do our very best. And, it's a real challenge because, we don't have bragging rights yet when we're running against the other Republicans. But what really is encouraging is when they compare my votes against the president. We do better than the rest of them. So that's one of the arguments the Republicans have used for a long time, is we need somebody to beat Obama. But the fact that I do better, it doesn't seem to interest them too much, which I find interesting.
Now, you've been Mr. Nice Guy this campaign so far, but now you're getting down and dirty. Here's your latest attack ad. Let's watch this.
One is a serial hypocrite who lobbied for Freddie Mac before the housing crisis and for the individual mandate before Obamacare. Another, a counterfeit conservative who opposes right to work, massively increased spending, and funded Planned Parenthood. Finally, a flip-flopper who's been on all sides, supported TARP bailouts, and provided the blueprint for Obamacare. Three men, one vision, more big government, more mandates, less freedom.
It's like a promo for Mad Max, that. I mean, serial hypocrite, the counterfeit conservative, the flip-flopper.
I think your description is over the top, down and dirty. That's been around for several months now. We put that out before, and we wanted to resurrect it without spending more money. But I think it's legitimate if somebody's all over the place and they're changing their views and they voted for big government, and the other three candidates have. They all represent big government, and I am challenging them at that, so I'm going to keep pointing their record out because I think Republicans pretend they want limited government, and they don't have a very good record. When you think when the Republicans have taken over, when we had the House and the Senate and the presidency, we didn't shrink the size of government, and the deficit still exploded. So I think I have a role to play, and I would hope the Republicans would come around.
There is a theory going around that you're going a bit easy on Mitt Romney. And there are all sorts of potential reasons for that, which I won't bore you with. But is it true? I mean, are you and Mitt Romney in bed together?
No, I mean, one of our ads out right now challenges him for, being a flip-flopper. But that isn't a way. I think you guys are desperate for news, if that's the big news, because there's nothing to it. And I thought Governor Pawlenty answered it pretty well when they asked him about it, and they said, oh, was there a backroom deal with Mitt Romney and Ron Paul? He says Ron Paul is the last guy in the world that would be making a backroom deal. So now there's nothing to that. Just because you can talk to somebody doesn't mean you have to have a deal going. Yeah, I talk to him because, we've known each other for a long time, and we just disagree on policies. And we do have pretty strong disagreements, in the foreign policy and the war on drugs and civil liberties and these things. So there is definitely a difference. And, of course, I disagree with all three of them because I want to actually cut some spending, and that's a preposterous idea these days.
But tell me this, Dr. Paul, if you were Barack Obama and you're watching your attack ad just now, for example, who is best served to the Conservatives to take on Barack Obama? The hypocrite, the fake, or the flip-flopper?
Well, I think the people that are helped the best are the voters to find out whom they're voting for. If they're voting for somebody who says, I am the conservative, and he's really a fake, people need to know that. I mean, and this pretend is hypocrisy. There's no doubt about it. And the people deserve to know it. And they get away with too much over the years. People vote one way and they go home. They'll vote liberal in Washington, go home and run as arch conservatives. And for the most part, they have gotten away with it for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the point I was getting at is that I wonder how damaging it is to the Republican cause come the real battle when the nominee takes on Barack Obama, that such emotive language is now just being drilled out on an hourly basis in these ads. Because if you're Barack Obama, calling people hypocrites, frauds, flip-floppers, it's meat and drink to the Democrats, isn't it? They can just replay this stuff.
Well, do you think it was a love fest between Hillary and Obama? I mean, they went after each other pretty hard, and he puts her in one of the most important jobs in the cabinet, Secretary of State. So I would say that politicians pretty much come together. It's sort of like a family, you know, the old saying that you can fight with your siblings, but don't let the neighbors come in.
Rick Santorum had a pretty rough week. By common consent, his debate performance was one of his weakest performances, and then he got caught with this double whammy, you know, trashing a JFK speech and also coming out with this line about people going to college. You know, somehow this was a snobbish policy by President Obama to encourage kids to go to college. What did you make of it all?
Well, I can't interpret all that. I don't know what he was meaning, and it certainly didn't do him any favors. But sometimes what your mind is thinking, and you're saying things in a certain context, but it's heard a different way. But it certainly didn't do him much good, I don't believe.
On the assumption at the moment that Mitt Romney may end up being the nominee, would you serve under him if he asked you?
Well, it depends on, he's not likely to do that. I mean, though we, you know, get along and friends and we talk to each other, but to be in a position, you know, I wouldn't think that would be likely to happen. But, you know, there are certain issues that I feel very, very strongly about, you know, and I've been talking about it and trying to change people's minds on it for 30 or 40 years. So if somebody was serious, a president or anybody else asked me seriously, you know, but, you know, now that the monetary crisis is much worse, and it is going to get much worse, what do you think we ought to do? If they were honestly seeking my input, why would anybody turn that down? But as far as being in that administration, I have to wait and see. Maybe I'll have to ask him whether he wants to help me out when I get in.
I mean, I think you should certainly be rewarded. I mean, I know I'm making an assumption here you're not going to be a nominee, and that may be unfair at this stage. But, you know, given that people seem to think it might be Mitt Romney now, I would be staggered if he didn't reflect your popularity, particularly with young people on social media, the energy and drive you brought to your campaign. I mean, I think they'd be mad not to use you in some serious way.
But, you know, and, you know, these last couple elections, you know, I was third or fourth, you know, we didn't do all that well. But somebody sent me a note, you know, you always look for the positive thing. And almost every state, I think, essentially every state, I always win between the 18 and 30-year-olds. I always win that. So I think your point is well taken. You know, if they're thinking about the future or the fall election, I mean, young people are very, very important, and I'm the one person that can take young people away from Obama. But nobody's in leadership ever come and says, Ron, what is it that the young people like about what you're doing? I think they're afraid of the answer, because it might be, well, maybe a little less war and maybe a little less spending, maybe balance the budget, and maybe we shouldn't be walking into people's houses without search warrants. I don't think I want to hear that. But why should they write everybody off from under 30? You know, the only thing I'm thinking about doing, I don't like all these laws, but I'm thinking about proposing a law that nobody's allowed to vote over 30. So if I could narrow it down to people could vote under 30, my numbers would go up.
Let's take a little break, Ron, and come back and talk about two of your favorite topics, the Fed and Iran, and maybe a bit of birth control as well.
You took over the Fed in 2006. I have a silver ounce here, and this ounce of silver back in 2006 would buy over 4 gallons of gasoline. Today it'll buy almost 11 gallons of gasoline. That's preservation of values. Why couldn't people put this in a mattress and get 4 or 5 times much of the value in a few years?
As Ron Paul earlier this week, taking a break from the campaign trail to return to his job on Capitol Hill. There's some pretty tough questions for Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke. And Ron Paul's back with me now. You really stuck it to him with that silver coin, Ron. I mean, there was incontrovertible evidence, I would argue, that if you just stuck it under the mattress, you'd have done better with your money.
Yeah, what if you put those dollars away, they lose value. You know, the paper dollars lose value because he was saying the only people concerned about inflation are only the ones who put their money in the mattress. They're concerned about it. And my point was there's a lot of people concerned, and the inflation rate is much higher, and people on fixed incomes are hurting, and the people in the middle class, they hurt a lot more with the inflation of prices than do the people on Wall Street. You know, if you're making millions, what do they care about what the price of gasoline is? But the middle class does, and the people on fixed incomes do. So it's very dramatic when you look at the value of money. And gold and silver isn't money because I think it's money. It's there because it became money 6,000 years ago. Paper money is the artificial government money, and they always destroy it. And this is why we're in this crisis. This is what we're facing in Europe. And Bernanke has promised that we will bail out Europe because our banks are involved, and we are in the derivatives market, and it's this sovereign debt. And the American people are likely to end up owning Greek debt at the rate we're going, and that has to devalue the dollar. And I think that devaluation of the dollar and the increase in prices is just beginning.
Let's turn to Iran, Ron. I know your views about this, and you're quite right, I think, to warn people about the precedent of Iraq and so on, just not rushing headlong into more conflict and so on. But let me ask you this. Would you feel comfortable with Ahmadinejad having a nuclear weapon?
I wouldn't want that to happen. I wouldn't feel any more uncomfortable than I did when I was drafted in 1962, and the Soviets had 30,000 of them, and they had nuclear weapons in Cuba. I was pretty uncomfortable then, but we use containment and we work with it. We negotiate it. As ruthless as those thugs were in the Soviet Union, Kennedy was willing to talk to them, but we're not even willing to talk to the Iranians, and they don't even have a weapon. Our own government has no evidence that they have it or they're on the verge of having it, and yet the war drums are beating hard. They're ready to go. Just listen to the other three candidates. I mean, they don't hesitate for a minute to be very, very militant. Go into Syria, go into Iran, do whatever you can. And our own administration that should have most of the knowledge, they're trying to soften this. And I got that information a little bit out of Hillary yesterday before the International Relations Committee.
But do you understand why Israel in particular feels very, very vulnerable right now, with almost every country around it having the Arab Spring uprisings, and given the very outspoken comments by Ahmadinejad in relation to Israel? Do you understand why they would feel so vulnerable and why they would be so anxious about him having a nuclear weapon capability?
Right. No, and that's why they should reclaim their sovereignty rights. See, they can't do what they need to do with their borders, either peace treaties or defend their borders without getting permission from us. But we inadvertently create more problems for them because we propped up Mubarak, gave him $40 to $50 billion, and that arose, that created the blowback. So Al-Qaeda is now both in Libya and in Egypt. Matter of fact, Al-Qaeda is in Iraq, and the Al-Qaeda from Iraq is going over into Syria. So it's not helping Israel. Panetta is not anxious to go there. None of them are saying, let's go. We need to bomb these sites. I can't imagine. The only people that seem to be doing that are some of the Republican candidates who seem to think that in order to look tougher than anybody else, we're ready to go. And I think that's dangerous. I think it's careless and inflammatory, and is not a good way to try to bring peace to the world. That's the way you bring war to the world.
Let's have a final question on birth control. You've obviously delivered 4,000 babies in your life. You've cared for women's health for 4 or 5 decades. Did you agree with the Senate's decision to not allow any exemptions to Obama's birth control rule?
Well, I don't want the government in the insurance business. This whole idea that the government can tell the insurance company what they should give. And people now, when you're talking about mandating you know, birth control pills in an insurance program, that no longer is insurance. That's a mandate. It's an entitlement. So, I mean, traditionally, I remember when I first bought my first insurance policy, the question was, do you want to have OB care under your policy? And I said, yes. And they said, well, that'll cost you so many more dollars each month. So why should they, well, how can it be insurance if they don't know what you're insuring you for? So to say that you have to have on this policy with no increase in pricing, you are going to give out birth control pills, that becomes a welfare issue and a mandate and a cost to the insurance company. I just don't like the government in this business. I'm much stronger in believing the market works these things out, because then it gets the kind of argument that we're into now. I think it's a rather silly argument about who's going to get free birth control pills. I mean, that is way beyond the pale as far as I'm concerned.
Dr. Paul, thank you very much indeed, as always.
Thank you.